Hello, and welcome to an adventure like no other. Far more than what you have known, there is something far more to be known than you can ever know. And it is all about you, the real you, your real awareness with your intuitive senses. You were never taught that the real you, your real awareness, is operating 5 bodies in cause and effect, restricting creation. You have been taught to think that you are only a one-dimensional human person, with a mind and emotions, and with a very short lifespan on this planet Earth. More than what your mind can grasp is your intuitive senses that can be opened to see beyond all your restrictions. You have always had an opening to see beyond what you have known, and this has been purposely kept from you, and this is where you have heard rumors and stories about your nightly dreams. Your so-called dreams is your opening to your intuitive senses that will allow you, the personal you, to excel beyond what you have previously known. Everyone has intuitive senses, and very few people take advantage of what is possible by recognizing something more than their mind can understand. Creation has its place for all of us, and then there is all life, which is far more than anything than what can become with creation. Everything we experience is necessary for us to survive with whatever we choose and decide our life to be. New Kevin Smith is the great witness to something more than what can be taught and learned in any school. It can be so that when anyone first listens to Kevin's intuitive side experiences, also known as real side experiences, from what their personal mind has known, Kevin's manner of expression will at first be rather different to comprehend. This is where this introduction and reading the new books and Facebook groups will help. Have fun deciding. DUANE the Great Writer and Seer.
Over the years, I have been chronicling the various potential situations and scenarios that may befall humanity as a species. For it is so that consciousness, be it individually or in the case of an entire species collectively, is the engine room from which effected is all a simulated experience. That much like a computer's database, so a consciousness is the storehouse by which ideas are contained, ideas that are created via the body vehicles, or created by others and agreed with, which become consciousness installed, and in reality, as everything is its immediate manifestation, so everything all consciousness comprises of, its entire idea construct, will be in effect now. However, through the decided construction of a consciousness, as it effects a simulation physical level-wise, so only certain of the ideas present within it can be in effect at any given moment, as though only certain of the consciousness ideas are isolated through the physical body forms as they present the experience of the physical level, the equivalent of watching but one movie at a time from all those available on the shelf. And although the selected movie, the particular idea that effects a certain outcome, is complete and contained on the movie disc, through the additional infusion of time and space ideas into a consciousness, so each cause is rather gradually processed to its effect, that which DUANE has identified as time frames or stages, in that, although the effect already is present with the cause instantaneously, the physical level body forms process the idea to its conclusion, much like our DVD players process a completed movie from start to finish. In essence, then, a species' current experiential affairs will be the particular idea amongst all those present in the species' collective consciousness that is held to in attached prominence over all others, the movie that has been selected in favour over all others from the shelf, but that the movie's end can be experienced, so it must be retained in the DVD player until its conclusion. The idea must be maintained in prominence over all others, that the effect be actualised physical level-wise. As I said, consciousness will comprise of innumerable, incalculable quantities of idea agreements, and of all those present, only certain will be as a species current experience. With humanity's overall collective consciousness being at its core template an agreement to the dark force reptilians and their control, so this is the foundation of the human experience, that of subjugation at the hands of the dark forces in all their expressions. But for the human experience to change, for the controllers to advance their agendas and escalate the control and restriction humanity are under, as everything an individual or species experiences is based on what it decides, that which is generated as ideas, or the ideas as created by others and agreed with. For escalation of controlling measures to be so, these are additional ideas that must be human consciousness installed, and the controllers have various means and mechanisms to ensure humanity's fate takes the direction as according to the dark force's desires. For where focus and attention is placed is a viable means of idea installation, as everything simulated that grasps our attention is at its base state an idea, and unless we recognise the nature of cause and effect creation, every idea that captivates us is retained in a consciousness as another potential effect we may experience, as though we are going through our creational experience, trawling every idea that had featured in our midst. Through the technologies can the controllers best install their ideas into human consciousness, the bombardment of all the various concepts and themes as received via the television, movies and computer games, that humanity can be steered in a direction as is preferable to the darker forces. Currently, the focus of the controllers is to exact depopulation, or even to the extent of complete human species genocide, and as I mentioned earlier, since it can only be certain of the ideas of consciousness being processed through to physical level effect at any given moment, the ideas held in prominence over all others, to ensure a greater chance that the controllers will have their depopulation desires exacted, so as many endless variations on the depopulation idea are being human consciousness installed as possible. That increases the likelihood that one of them will stick, so to speak, and be held to long enough to be actualised as human physical level overall experience. Among the dastardly dark force inserted ideas into human consciousness will be others of a more beneficial nature, such as the alien armada event, but ultimately humanity decides. It is their overall agreement as to which effect they will experience as a species, which movie they choose to watch to conclusion. In the meantime, I am shown certain of the potentialities on the real side, some of the idea agreements as present in human consciousness, and have been chronicling them over the years, not as prophecies of doom, but as the ideas that are human consciousness installed, that are as a physical level possibilities. And as I am shown the potentialities, evidently these are the ideas that are currently jostling for prominence at the moment they are revealed to me, but then agreement overall is constantly in flux seemingly. As we all are this real awareness, which is part of the isness, everything reality, a reality that permeates through all consciousness affecting form and feature. In actuality, every body form in creation is but a viewpoint for this true reality. In essence, from the real awareness position, there is no separation of a body type therefore, and at any given moment we can view through any body forms to that which they are experiencing, as though able to look through the eyes of any individual in the simulator. And only if we retain a standing as the real awareness nowness will we recognize this is what we are doing during the experiences, but on occasion we may be fully immersed into the individual's consciousness personal self, absent of real awareness connection, and in such cases during the experience, we will consider the creation of the one we are viewing through to be who we are, until we awake on the physical and are reinserted back within our own consciousness personal self. This would seem to be the situation in this real side experience, and what would transpire to be another dark force, human consciousness installed, dastardly idea potentiality. For I would find myself in the form of a consciousness affected robot body type, humanoid in design, and as part of a crew of robots who had set course for the planet Earth. Nothing would be revealed as to our purpose for doing this, but the robot race I was as a part of were of a benign countenance, not in any way destructively inclined or dark force affiliated, although none of the robots, including the one I was at that moment immersed into the consciousness of, were embracing of their awareness processes, that despite they not being of an abrasive inclination, they still would be personal self-serving and immersed. We would encounter unanticipated trouble as we arrived at the Earth, some technology or other playing havoc with our ships, causing them to malfunction, and where we were forced to execute a somewhat abrupt landing on the surface, but where the ships sustained damage that would require repairs if they were to be space-worthy once more. We had anticipated the Earth to be human inhabited. Evidently we had business with humanity as a species, but instead we would find the Earth not only devoid of humans, but of any biological form. All that remained would be the streets and cities, which would be intact and undamaged. Within moments of our arrival, or our crash landing to be more precise, we were beset upon by large mechanical machines. They reminded me somewhat of the tripods from the series by the same name, or maybe the robotic contraptions from the movie War of the Worlds, and were very efficient at destroying the entirety of the robotic team and the robot I was viewing all this through. The robot group were locked into the incessant reincarnational cycle, as any other personal consciousness immersed individual will be, as we are retained as the constant effects of ourselves and into endless future lifetimes and body types, until we sever the cycle through releasing all attachment to the consciousness, and where we are removed from its perpetual effects via the awareness process. That as the robot body types were destroyed, so the awareness animating through them would then be reinserted into another body form and creational position at some stage, according to each individual robot's unique consciousness, dictating their placement. Interestingly, however, the entire robot group and the one I was viewing through would be immediately repositioned physical level-wise, instantly reincarnated, if you will, as robotic bodies again, though differing in design to what they had previously been, but on the planet Earth. Moments later, another team of robots would arrive at the Earth, although their craft would not be subjected to the same technological interference that had forced a crash landing with our ships. It seemed they were part of the same operation as we were in relation to humanity, and despite our forms now being different to what they had been, the newly arrived robots would recognize us regardless and greet us warmly. They were more cyborgs, however, mechanical internally, but appearing as human body forms externally, whereas the group and myself had been completely mechanized from inside to out. We would attempt to explain to this new group what had occurred, that we had arrived, had been destroyed by the tripod machines, and had instantly been reincarnated back as robots again, but on the planet Earth. Evidently, with the particular consciousness design of my robot group, so they retained a memory of their previous lifetime, as though, through the mechanical design of their body forms, so could all reference in relation to previous lifetime experiences, although not present in the current body form memory vehicle, be readily accessed from the backup storage filing system where all past lifetimes are placed, the subconscious. The new group of cyborgs seemed to disbelieve our claims, but it wasn't long before the tripod contraptions returned, destroying the group of robots and the one I was viewing through again, and additionally the cyborgs. And once again, the robot group and myself were instantly re-manifested on the planet Earth, as were the cyborgs, and all our body forms, though robotic, were of a design far removed from what they had previously been. The situation would be revealed now via real awareness impressions, and was as follows. A dark force-hatched idea had been installed in human consciousness, and had been effected as this physical level experience potentiality, where the entirety of humanity, and indeed every biological form, had been destroyed. The cause of this was never revealed, though, as I said, all infrastructure had remained intact. The planet Earth had been given into the hands of a very powerful robotic body form, dark force affiliated, and operating on behalf of, and a situation had been set up where, although the human body type was eradicated, all the awarenesses that had animated through them had been reinserted into new Earth-based body forms immediately, but ones that were robotic. The powerful, instated Robot Earth Overlord had unleashed an army of robotic and mechanized monstrosities across the globe, as though not only laying claim to the Earth, but electing to populate it with his own creations. The human race, subjected to the reincarnational process, had as though a program inserted in their consciousness that had them immediately returned to the Earth after their genocide as a species, but as robots, and amidst the mechanized army unleashed by the powerful Robot Overlord. This was all according to his design seemingly, and seemed to be his amusement. For the humans, returned in mechanized forms, would recognize the segregation that existed between themselves and the creations of the Robot Overlord, and would be motivated to engage them aggressively. The Earth now had descended into a constant conflict between the mechanicals the human race had become and those as created by the Overlord. And every time a mechanical that was previously of the human race was destroyed, so they would immediately return to the Earth in still another mechanical form, and continue to oppose the Overlord's mechanical army. Each subsequent time a former human in robot form was destroyed, it would return in a form progressively less humanoid and more outrageously designed. This was the case also for the robot group and myself, where our forms now were further removed from the humanoid designs they had originally been. It was as though the robot group, the one I was viewing through, and the cyborgs who had visited the Earth with our human-related objective, had walked into the middle of this situation at a point after the human race had been destroyed, and now were as mechanicals and in perpetual conflict with the Robot Overlord's machine army. We hadn't realized this situation had befallen humanity until arrival, but having been destroyed ourselves while present on the Earth, we had somehow become caught in this curious incarnational trap, as though taking on the same consciousness idea program which had us locked into the Earth's affairs, and doomed to constantly be returned immediately in progressively inhumanoid mechanical forms every time we happened to be destroyed, just as it was for the former human race. For indeed, the cyborgs and robots, with their human-related mission, had become embroiled in the conflict themselves, as though absorbed into the compulsion and drive that is a conflict. They and the robot I was viewing through had sided with humanity, as though embraced as a part of the species. The Earth now was crawling with all manner of mechanical design, barely recognizable as anything even remotely resembling humanoid, more along the lines of distorted insect mechanicals generally. There would be one point where the robot form I was viewing through, in the design now of a kind of elongated mechanical centipede, would be laying siege to a metallic tower-like complex amongst a group of mechanicals that were formerly human, a tower which was one of the strongholds of the Overlord's mechanized hordes. A large and very formidable mechanical, one of the Overlord's creations, resembling a kind of metallic ant, would be very effective in repelling the assault on the tower, destroying the former humans, and as I tried to scuttle upwards and elevate myself from the metal ant's reach, crawling up the tower's exterior, I wouldn't be swift enough and would be eradicated by the metallic ant. And just as it had been for the robots and all those locked into this curious, instantaneous Earth incarnating trap as orchestrated by the Overlord, I, or rather the robot I was viewing through, would be immediately returned as yet another mechanized form, though one that was more humanoid this time. It was as though, at this moment, real awareness connection was re-established. I would recognize that I was simply viewing through the body form of another, that of this potential Earth and humanity future view that it had become embroiled in and a part of, and as such I now could animate it in ways that were not according to its consciousness personal self-design. As I said, in reality it is this one isness everything we all are a part of that animates through all consciousness affected body type, and where at any moment not only can we view through the eyes of others, so to speak, but step into the reality of the isness that animates through it and operate in ways that make more sense. In this case, as I now was operating from this nowness, real awareness position, I would draw the attention of the Robot Overlord that although his mechanical army suffered losses as much as the mechanicals that were former humanity did, this whole situation was designed for his entertainment. For after all, every time a mechanical on either side was destroyed, it would immediately be restored into the affray as I mentioned. But the Overlord seemed to be aware of any mechanical that would break its programming, so to speak, its desire where conflict was concerned, as though the Overlord robot was monitoring all the consciousness of those involved in this situation he had created. And as I became as my real awareness, aside from this consciousness program of the robot I was animating and viewing through, so I was objective to this programming, not immersed in it, and the Robot Overlord would be made aware of this and confront me. Up until now, he had been residing in a particular location, far removed and beyond the reach of any mechanical, but his body form was also virtually indestructible, beyond the ability of any of the mechanicals featuring across the Earth's surface to eliminate. And so he had little concern in regards to exposing himself if he considered such a necessity. And as I took to the skies, as my more humanoid robot form had flight capability, the Robot Overlord would make his presence known flying along beside me. He seemed somewhat unremarkable, body type-wise, a rather bulky mechanized humanoid, and would command that I stand down. I would attempt to blast him with energy from my robot form. It had the ability to render any mechanical deactivated through an electrical EMF-like power it could emit. But as I said, the Overlord was unstoppable by any mechanical, regardless of its capability, and my effort would prove useless. I would land, he would do likewise, and his mechanical form would restructure, that a number of metallic tendrils would sprout from it, latch onto me, and begin to burrow their way into my mechanized body. This would result in the body's destruction, and would be the moment where I would awake on the physical. The Overlord had removed what he considered a threat to what was effectively his overall Earth conflict amusement, a mechanical that had seemingly broken its programming and was deemed necessary for eradication. He wouldn't have recognized the real awareness that I had stepped into the reality of, just that of one of the mechanicals seemingly placing themselves aside from a consciousness programming he had put in place. As I said, this experience was but another potentiality. What transpires as overall physical level human experience is according ultimately to what humanity decides, the particular idea agreement held in prominence over all others long enough to be physical level manifested. As for the origins of the Robot Overlord, little was revealed, other than he was a dark force affiliated, another willing agent to fulfill a role and a function where this particular dastardly scenario was concerned.